Happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to my show where it really is okay to not be okay. I'm Rae Bonney, a qualified counsellor, workplace mental health specialist, and not to mention a very dedicated and oftentimes enthusiastically disruptive men's issues advocate. It's not every girl's dream job, but hey, men also matter. Can you believe it's May already and the typical Melbourne is turning up the occasional hot day every now and then amidst some freezes like yesterday and the wind. We also heard a delivery of the federal budget. And now I don't want to sound political, but my strong interest in men's health uncovered a stakeholder brief on budget announcements, which highlights around 150 mentions of women and less than 5 for men. Pitching men versus women is not really my thing, but this is a really stark representation of the low priority currently placed on men's health. Anyway, enough of that and moving on. As always on this show, every month I continue to unwrap one of the greatest gifts going around, and that is people. Layer by layer, we explore the thoughts, experiences, achievements and challenges of ordinary people bound to inspire the best you. So turn up your radio. The time is just 1 minute past 10. We just heard from the beautiful and talented Michelle Ciccardo and her much accomplished producer Alex Burney with their globally popular Italian program Fantastica Michelle and Alex. Now, many listeners from the Whitehorse Bundara area could be familiar with the Canning's brand. For those who aren't, think about Melbourne's best ethical meat butcher. Canning's was built from the ground up, fueled by Sam Canning's love of good food and his desire to raise the industry bar and improve animal welfare standards. Since 2010, Canning's philosophy has been embraced and supported by the Melbourne community. And years on, the business has grown and Canning's are supported by a strong network of free-range producers and a team of staff who represent Sam's core values. Generous to a T, Sam has driven all the way from the Mornington Peninsula this morning to join me live in the studio at 3WBC. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Sam.
Oh, what a beautiful introduction. Thank you, Rae.
Yeah, I read the same thing every month. I just swap out the names, you know. Today we've got Sam Canning.
You do not. No, thank you. It's great to be here.
It's such a pleasure to have you. I think one thing that I really love about producing this show is the research that you do, or that I do on my guests, and finding out things that you go, wow, that's so amazing that a person would dedicate their life to doing something so important. And we're going to uncover that during the show. But how we know each other. There's a few little segues in there. I did get a call from your wonderful operations manager, Caroline Gill. I think it was probably back in December, to say, hey, we really care about animals and we also really care about our people. Rae, can you come and design something really special that addresses the mental health and well-being of our staff at Canning's? And so there I turned up, and that's where I met you.
Yeah. It was off the back of a pretty challenging year, understandably. So I'm really glad that Caroline found you, because it's been fantastic having you on board.
Yeah, well, how she found me was another kind of interesting piece, because my son George, who is a chef, I talk about George all the time on this show, and Rose and Rory, but George during the pandemic was very, very fortunate to be invited to work at Canning's in your Q store, along with Matt Stone.
Yep.
And he had such a wonderful experience. And I wrote Caroline a note just to say thank you for taking care of my son during this really difficult time. So that's kind of how we met.
Oh, George very much took care of us as well. You know, he's incredibly talented. It was great to have him for that little bit of time. So
yeah, and it's not often. I think the pandemic has been absolutely terrible for so many. But there has been little gems as well. Like, George would never have had the opportunity to learn butchery skills like he has, and that's only ever going to serve him really, really well.
Absolutely.
So the initiative around mental health and well-being goes really hand in hand with the caring philosophy of Canning's, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's right.
So before we jump into all of that, I just want to ask a few questions because, our listeners are very keen to know more about who is Sam Canning. And always my first question is, where did you grow up?
Oh, where did I grow up? So all sort of Melbourne based. I moved around a little bit.
Yeah.
So I was born in Brighton, and then we moved, and I went to school initially in Gardenvale,
Yep.
and then we moved to Aspendale. So all my primary school years were in Aspendale.
Near the beach?
Yeah, near the beach. Yeah,
Yeah.
which, if anyone doesn't know, Aspendale, I guess, near Mordialloc, kind of, I guess, halfway between Cheltenham and Frankston.
Yep.
Yeah, so, lots of cool memories of, hanging out at Aspendale Beach, Edithvale Beach, fishing off the Mordialloc Pier, hiring boats with my dad from Mordialloc, going out fishing and stuff with my dad. So that was sort of the primary school years, and then we moved back up to Brighton, where I went to school up there for a while. And yeah, so that's it's all very Melbourne centric and
Yeah.
and Bayside really.
What did you enjoy about the fishing?
I don't know. I still do enjoy a little bit of fishing, but I'm just so crap at it. Like, I really have no idea what I'm doing. I'm actually going through a big sort of self-education phase around fishing again now because I've moved back down towards the beach because I lived in Kew for quite a while during, well, I guess, more formative years of Canning's, which was great because I was like really, really close because I was, working in the shops every single day, which I don't do anymore because I'm sort of more head office orientated and sort of roaming, sort of very people orientated kind of role at the moment. So I move around quite a lot. But now sort of moving back down to being near the water, I'm sort of it's piqued my interest again in a little bit of fishing and stuff. I don't know. I think it's just because I'm so crap at it is why I find it so interesting. I like to be good at things and
What makes you good at fishing though? Because the fish is either getting on your line or not. So it's a bit of potluck.
No, there's
isn't it?
there's a whole lot of, I don't know, science behind it around like tides and moons and wind, and how all those things affect the amount of churn in the water and then the visibility in the water and even just where you anchor and how you anchor over a school of whiting, for example, can determine whether you're actually going to catch anything or not.
So how do your ethics then extend to fishing? Is there
Good question. Yeah. So I do struggle a little bit with that because I am an animal lover inherently. Like, it's, very much sort of baked into me. So a lot of throwing back, I guess. A lot of, putting the fish back in the water. But at the same time, also kind of recognizing the fact that I'm hunting and it's about food. So I guess just not taking more than you need.
Yes.
And I think I would like to think that's a philosophy that many anglers have.
Yeah. Are there more humane ways of fishing though? Because I don't think I'd fancy having a hook stuck in my mouth. I reckon it'd hurt.
I don't know. I mean, there's plenty of more inhumane ways of doing it, like trawling, which is just completely not fair. You know, like, whereas I feel like with a line and a hook, it's like at least it's kind of one-on-one.
Yeah.
But I went fishing with someone in Port Campbell, actually, when I was visiting our free-range duck producer in Port Campbell also. Anyway, we went fishing and he was like pretty brutal with like everything on board and using a lot of live baits and stuff like that. And so there was quite a few experiences I had on that fishing trip where I was like, oh my God, this is not feeling right. Like, this guy's hardcore, obviously. Literally like catching a fish and then filleting it while it's alive on the boat and using this and leaving the fish like half filleted on the bait board kind of thing. And I'm just like freaking out basically. But I mean, I guess that's how some people operate. But for me, I don't know, a quick kill, like not just throwing it into what they call a kill tank, which is just like it's basically just like a bucket or a tank, which is under the floor of a boat with no water in it. And they just chuck it in there to kind of, I guess, suffocate. Yeah. So I'm sort of just, quick kill is the least you could do for, for any animal that you're going to eat, right?
Yeah. I like the way that you've talked about your suppliers as well, and in the next segment, I want to talk to you about how you select your suppliers and those relationships, because we often don't think about where the stuff comes from. And I remember having a discussion with George saying, oh, I go into Canning's and pay an exorbitant amount of money for salmon, and I can go next door to Woolworths and get it for half the price. Like,
Yeah.
why wouldn't I do that? And George goes, Mum, you've got no idea. Like, you drongo, the way that these the canning salmon are caught, and the respect for them, and is so different to what's produced for the supermarket chains.
Yeah, that's correct.
So
Yep.
we'll talk about that in a little while. But in terms of you entering into your apprenticeship, you were only 17 years of age.
That's right.
And you already had this, as you said, this love for animals. So what brought you to be an apprentice butcher at the age of 17?
I do get asked this question quite a lot, and everyone's always like,
I thought I'd be the first person.
Well, it's kind of, the answer is kind of a little bit underwhelming. And that's kind of like, I fell into it, right? Like, I left school a bit early. Didn't finish.
Were you naughty?
I didn't finish year 12. Well, a combination of probably being a little bit naughty and a bit disengaged with the school or education. But I remember being very like money driven at the time. Like, I was like, I just wanted a car. Like, very like one track mind. Like, I just want a car, and I don't think I really enjoyed getting up and sitting in classrooms and talking or listening to a whole bunch of stuff that I wasn't particularly interested in. I was just really keen to sort of get on with life. So anyway, I left school without any particular agenda or anything. It was just to kind of do my own thing, get a job, start working. And I remember I left, and I didn't jump into a job straight away. I couldn't find anything that was like really appealing to me. But one of my friends was working at a local butcher shop in Hampton, so Hampton Street, and that shop's still there. It's called South City Meats. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with Hampton or Hampton Street, but there's a butcher shop and a fruit shop there together right next to the train station. And one of my friends was working at that butcher shop just washing trays, like washing up in the afternoons. And he got me a job doing that. So nothing, terribly ambitious, but, just a little bit of money. Got in there, started doing that, and then I guess the boss there, Mick is his name. I think he still owns the place. G'day, Mick, if you're listening. And he kept he identified, I guess, that I wasn't going to school, and he was kind of probably thinking, oh, this is a good opportunity for an apprentice, or offer this guy an apprenticeship, which he did. And at the time I was thinking, no way, I'm not going to be a butcher. Like, nah. Had a whole lot of preconceptions in my head around what a butcher is or whatever. Yes. Like everybody probably does. And, he kept persisting with me, like going, come on, do this. And I did a few extra hours here and there. And then I guess I just, yielded and started my apprenticeship. And, I guess a whole lot of stuff's happened between then and now, and here I am.
Not much at all. But I read somewhere that you thought in those early years you were going to die from mincing because that's all you were doing, just mincing and chopping. Yeah,
apprenticeships are really different these days, and especially, well, I mean, I can really only speak on behalf of how we Cannings run our apprenticeship program. But yeah, I mean, our apprentices have a knife in their hand on day one, whereas like, when I did this was back in like 1998 or something, whatever. Like having a knife and getting your knife pouch was like this like monumental kind of occasion, and it's like you don't get that for a while after starting. So I don't reckon I had my knives until well into my second year, and it was very much just like mincing, making sausages, just like just cleaning, just a whole lot of kind of menial tasks or whatever. But like in hindsight, it felt like I was never going to get off that mince.
So what inspired you to keep going and pushing through?
I'm really casting my mind back quite a long way, but I do remember that 4 years, like that 4-year apprenticeship, like feeling like it was lasting forever, and I was never gonna get out of that. But I guess I don't know what inspired me to keep going. I mean I don't know. I have no idea. You just head down, like just get on with it. But I also remember, like it was such a fantastic learning environment as well, because it was such a busy shop, and we really used to like do a lot of work. Like on a Monday morning, I'd walk into like 20 hindquarters of beef, and then on the Tuesday morning we'd do like 20 lambs, and then Wednesday we'd do another 20 lambs, but we'd also do 10 pigs, and then on Thursday we'd do another 20 lambs. Like it was just, I don't know, everyone was.
So when you say doing lambs, is that like breaking them down?
Yeah, breaking them down and everything. It was just, the volume was like quite incredible. So it was a really good learning environment.
Yep.
So
But if you start your apprenticeship and you really didn't have any objective there, when was the time that things clicked over for you and then you started loving it?
yeah, okay, and so I don't know exactly like in terms of how far into the apprenticeship, but I do remember, I guess, at some point realizing that the trade itself was it actually suited me quite a lot because I do like talking to people, and there is that real like personal kind of element, like serving customers, obviously, but I also like working with my hands, and it very much is working with your hands, and there is that. It's hard to explain, like, if you're not a butcher, but like there really is this there is an art and there's a lot of skill to it. You're not just like hacking away at carcasses with a chopper. Like it's not like that at all. It's very precise, and if you go too far one way, you're cutting yourself. If you go too far the other way, you're cutting things too thick or whatever. And so there is this element of like precision to it, and pride, and just and almost like perfection, like
Yes.
cutting a really nice tray of loin chops or chump chops or a beautiful tray of eye fillet, and just putting so much pride into every sort of thing that you do, and turning a carcass into like a piece of art basically to put in the cabinet, and even the cabinet displays themselves can be quite a work of art as well. So I guess it was just kind of gradually unfolding all those kind of elements and going, hey, this actually really suits me.
Yeah.
And I can like apply all of these things that I'm good at, and I'm getting rewarded,
Yeah.
at the same time. So yeah.
So who were your role models? You mentioned Mick at Hampton Meats. Was he a good mentor for you? Sorry, Mick, if you're listening in and you're not one.
I've actually done a whole blog post on Mick before, and I've done a whole blog post on someone else called Nino, who's a guy who I used to work alongside at South City Meats, who then opened up his own shop, and then I worked for him for a while as well. So those two guys, Mick and Nino. So yeah, look, Mick was a strange one. Well, not a strange one, but the relationship was a little bit strange in terms of he was kind of like a dad that you couldn't really connect with because he was so busy all the time, yeah, and he was always on the phone and never really gave me much, but I was always like super super eager to impress him, right? But then sometimes you would see him on the knives, and then when you're like, oh my god, like he's awesome, that guy, like
Yeah.
watch you look at him go. So I was always like, yeah, just super eager to impress.
Yeah.
And he was amazing on the counter as well. So I was just like lots of listening to like, just how he speaks with people and all that kind of stuff. But he never really spent a lot of time on me either. So, so very much a role model. You end up speaking like him. You end up serving like him. You end up holding your knives like him. You end up buying the same knives as him. And there's still like that stuff today. Like, my knives, I still use exactly the same knives that Mick used.
Wow.
But that's then what I use, and then it's kind of like the first kind of setup or whatever that I recommend for my apprentices. So it just kind of flows on, and. But, funnily enough, I ended up working alongside of Nino more often. And yeah, Nino is just like, yeah, he sort of taught me a lot more about like, cutting and all that kind of stuff. And then just, observing how he works, and he was just like a machine, just like absolutely pumped the work out all day, just non-stop all day. So I sort of thank him for, I guess, work ethic and learning that work ethic. I'm sure George, your son, has worked alongside people like that before as well, where you just like you get your eyes open to like what I guess the real world is, and
Yeah.
and in a physical kind of job like that, you're kind of like, whoa, I've never seen anything like this before, like and that's.
So did those experiences sort of help you develop that passion around ethics? Because I imagine that the original or the initial butcher shops that you worked in probably weren't talking about
No.
Ethics and morals around how we butcher. So when did you start thinking about that?
Yeah. So then, definitely then, like at the start of my apprenticeship, yeah, that was
Because you
something.
said that your love for animals is baked in. Your
Absolutely.
words.
Yeah. Big softy, huge streak of empathy going through me, and yeah, I'll talk about this a little bit later. Maybe I'll just completely digress and start talking about it now. But
You can do whatever you
I
like.
was on
This is
I
your
was on a
show.
big motorbike ride a couple of weeks ago through a desert, and there was a roo which had a broken leg. I didn't hit it or anything. It was just it was caught in a fence and it had a broken leg, and I had to kill it. And yeah, it just left me like crying, just
Yeah.
blubbering
Yeah.
in the desert by myself with a dead roo in front of me.
What an odd story.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, mercy kill, right?
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't leave it there.
No.
It was screwed. So, but yeah, did find that whole experience quite upsetting. But anyway, what was the question? Oh yeah, so the ethical, I guess, side of it, and when that kind of, I guess, yeah,
Kicked in.
yeah. Well, I guess it was. I mean, as I said, it was right at the start when I was just started in butchery, and I guess the emphasis on free range produce and grass fed produce back then wasn't really there. Like, no one was really talking about it that much. But for me, I was kind of aware of it, and just noticed that customers were asking for it every now and then. To which the answer was no, we don't have free range.
Yeah.
So, but it wasn't like for me at that time, it wasn't enough of a reason for me to be like, oh, I'm not working here. They don't have free range meat. It was just, because when you're 17 and 18, you're just still kind of taking it all in and just trying to, I guess, figure out what feels right and what doesn't feel right. So that real kind of, my real sort of affiliation with that kind of way of farming and then doing business, that kind of came later after I didn't even realise that there was like free range butcher shops or there were places that were really specialising in that. And there wasn't really back then, I guess, but that has developed a lot over time, which is
In terms
great.
of free range, you hear a lot of stick about it in terms of, especially around eggs and egg production, that we see, free range eggs and caged eggs. But I did hear tell in the industry a while back that free range wasn't necessarily all that free range. That some of the conditions were kind of quite fluid.
Yeah, all the stocking densities. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we're looking at free range, is it really as we imagine it?
Well, with chickens, it's not how you imagine it, because chickens the thing is they like to have shelter.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the time, a lot of these egg producers or even the meat chickens, they've still got a shed to go in at night because that's where it's safe from the foxes and all that kind of stuff. But then, when the doors open, a lot of them just stay inside anyway. So, yeah.
So selectively not free range.
Yeah. But also, I should know this off the top of my head, but, that whole 1,500 birds per hectare thing, like... there was a lot of kerfuffle around that, and I think there still is. I think the gold standard is 1,500 hens per hectare, but that's not not many chickens. You could still quite comfortably have a lot more chickens in that particular space, and the chickens would be completely happy with it as well. So everyone's become fixated on the 1,500. And I think our chickens that we source our eggs from in Bimbadeen, I've done a video from that as well. Bimbadeen in Phillip Island.
All right.
Yeah, it's just a little kind of little farm in Phillip Island, and
I thought I knew Phillip Island very well, but I've never heard of Bimbadeen.
The stocking density is like, I don't know, it's like 50 hens per hectare or something. It's ridiculous. It's so low. But yeah, what I find strange though is a lot of people just think that all cattle and all sheep are free range. Like, they just think that's just the way it is, and it's just not the case.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people just don't give it a lot of thought. They kind of think it's like, well, yeah, it's just a bit of a crock, but it's totally not. Like,
but I think that's very true of how we consume things in general. We're so thoughtless about how we do that, and especially food, and the emergence of the big supermarket chains where everything is just so beautifully produced. And I remember I worked with ICI, which is now Orica, back probably in the late 80s, early 90s, and I worked for Crop Care, which is manufacturing chemicals to make stuff look really good. And that was where emergence of the consumer demand for perfection, and we want our apples to look perfect, and we want them to be the same size and the same shape, and no blemishes.
Yep.
And again, the thoughtlessness of it. I was so proud of these products because look what they can produce for people. It wasn't until later on in life that you go, that was really bad.
Yeah. So I like to kind of, I guess, educate people or enlighten people a little bit around the fact that 40-50% of beef that you see today is grain-fed or at least been into a feedlot. Lamb, yeah, certainly not that high. But there is a lot of grain assisting and a lot of grain feeding, and these animals we're talking about are they're not meant to be eating grains. They're meant to be eating grass, and that's how it's been for thousands and thousands of years.
And the reason for the grain fed is that to get them big quickly.
Yeah, it produces them, gets them to slaughter weight quicker.
Yeah.
But also gives the producer a lot of consistency around meat color, yield, fat content, like intramuscular fat, so marbling, and the subcutaneous fat, which is like the outer fat. So it just gives them control over everything. Yeah. Whereas on the grass, it's like, it's you're kind of at the mercy of the elements to some degree in terms of like how cold it is and how the grass is growing and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it? Again, when you put a lot of thought into it, as you obviously have done, it just becomes something so different. And then the lens in which we look at our consumer behaviour becomes quite startling. And I think, we wish more people were talking about this to give consumers more of a choice around how they consume and what they consume and what they're feeding their family. But we are going to head into a break, Sam. It's already half an hour into the show.
Oh, I love talking. And like I said to you, I said to you, God, I hope I've got enough to say. I think you picked that I was going to have plenty to say. So.
Well, I remember saying to you, do you want to come on this show? And you said, what would I have to talk about? And I went, yeah, I reckon there'll be a few things.
Your job today is to stop me from rambling.
Oh, no, it's not rambling. I think it's fascinating, and I know that my phone's been buzzing a bit, so people that are listening in will have some stuff to say.
Cool.
But we're going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the birth of Cannings and the 11-year trajectory that has you now sitting here in my studio.
Lovely.
But before that, Sam, this is the time when I start rolling out my very special guest song requests.
My favourite.
And I give little cryptic clues around, because you don't know which song's going to come up first. So I'll give a little cryptic clue, and then you have to tell me what the song is and what it means to you, right?
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's a little game.
Scary.
It's a favourite. So here's the clue for the first one. Think about the number 3 and a girl's name.
God, I don't even know what I've what I requested now.
That's what they all say.
Oh no, I do now. I do. Yeah. So what do I say? Do I just guess what it is?
Yeah.
Oh, so is it Daniela by John Butler Trio?
That's the one.
Yeah. So all the songs I've put forward today are all Australian, because I love Australian music, so it's awesome. Always got to give that a little bit of a push. Not that John Butler needs too much pushing, because he's obviously practically rock star. What the song means to me? Oh, it's just fun. It's just lots of fun. So
Good.
I don't know anyone called Daniela. So
you actually spelt it incorrectly in the text.
Yeah.
So
when
I was purchasing it on iTunes, because we do purchase all of our music here.
Awesome.
It's very important that we support the Australian entertainment industry, or the global entertainment industry, and really think about what goes into producing. It's the same as we're talking about meat. So here goes. It's Daniela by the
John Butler Trio.
That's the one. Don't go away. You're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC. Don't go away. Oh, welcome back. The time is just 32 minutes past 10 and you're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC with Rae Bonney, joined by founder of Canning's Free Range Butchers, Sam Canning. Now, let me ask you, Sam, this question. You know this question. What does it feel like being you today?
You've asked me this a couple of times before, and I can never really spit out an answer, because I do have to have a think about it. I think I generally say it feels pretty good. Today, I had a good sleep last night. We've got a couple of puppies at home, and they, always bring a smile to your face when you walk out in the lounge room and see them jumping all over each other. Yes. Yeah, I do find it a bit of a tricky question.
I wanted to ask you this, and
how deep do you go with that kind of thing?
Well, I hope you don't mind me disclosing this, but there was a time we were chatting and you talked about how on Sundays you can feel pretty melancholy.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
right.
told you about, the Sunday headaches
Yep.
are very, it's a thing. You're running around all week and you're all tense, and
Yep.
Saturday's kind of a similar version, but then Sunday, then you relax, and then everything just sort of lets go.
That's right. That's right. Thankfully, I haven't felt that for a few weeks, and I don't know. You know what? I think Sundays are often, you have a long list of things that just need to be done, and none of them are terribly enjoyable or whatever. And whether that be just like, you have to go to the supermarket, or you got a kid's birthday party that you don't want to go to or whatever.
Do small talk with the other parents.
Yeah, so look, and I think I've said it to you before, like small talk just kind of does my head in. I like getting deep and meaningful.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. But and I haven't had any of those kinds of, I guess, commitments or obligations recently. So
Apart
Sundays,
from appearing on radio.
no, this has been cool. I love stepping into a studio. It's lots of fun getting in front of a microphone. So yeah.
So let's dive into this whole cannings thing. So what we know about you so far is that you fell into this apprenticeship, then you started really liking, just taking pride, and, you see the artistry in butchery. So when did cannings start formulating in your head?
So I had a bit of a love-hate relationship with butchery for quite a few years after qualifying. I worked for Coles and Woolworths for a little while, which I think was kind of maybe a little bit of a detox from the retail butchery side of things, because you get worked incredibly, or you used to get worked incredibly hard in retail butchery, like 70-hour weeks kind of thing was a standard thing. So I kind of enjoyed working for Coles and Woolies for a little while, just because it was like a 40-hour week, and it was, kind of easy, but it was also incredibly boring. So I didn't last too long in those institutions.
Good way of putting it. But at least you got that perspective, though.
Yeah. So I'm quite happy to have done it, but happy to have done that. But yeah, it's it didn't last for long. And then I went overseas, and I worked for a butcher shop that was the first shop I worked at that was, very much in line with my values, which was the Ginger Pig in London. And they were like a paddock-to-plate style butchery. So they were doing all their own farming and of all the animals, and then retailing them through their 2 stores. I think they've got quite a few stores now in London. And that was when I first realised, okay, cool, this feels much better, feels much more in line with what I want to be doing. But then I came back to Melbourne, and also I'm going into life story kind of stuff here. So I'm just trying to, I am trying to get to your answer, to your question. But I did have a little bit of a struggle between what I was between butchery and and just really trying to find something that I was very, very passionate about, and something that I wanted to do for, I guess, my career and the rest of my life. And I've been a musician for a very long time, and
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so started to get into sound production and audio engineering and all that kind of stuff, and started a little bit of a business where I was I was recording bands and stuff from my house, recording bands and
I had no idea.
Yeah. So I did that for a while and kind of really tried to pursue that, which was good for a little while, like a year or two, but it was also quite up and down. Like I wasn't like booked out months in advance or anything. It was, some weeks and months I'd have a lot on, and other times I wouldn't. So it wasn't great for like personal cash flow or anything. And then I found myself just, supplementing that with, I stopped butchering for about a year, completely for a year. And then I started to do a little bit of part-time kind of stuff again, part-time butchery, just to get the sort of money to be a little bit more consistent. But I guess at that point I kind of thought I was going in the direction of maybe getting out of butchery. And then I went over, and then, so I don't know, I went overseas again, and I just, going overseas is great, but, I went overseas by myself, traveled through Asia for 6 months by myself, did a whole lot of soul searching or whatever, and came back, and it was on that trip that I realised that I actually did really love the industry, and what I was going to do was going to open up my own butcher shop and sort of take charge of my own destiny or whatever, and came back and then worked for another paddock-to-plate style butcher who at the time was based in Albert Park, called Polkinghorns, and worked for them for about a year. And then after that, I managed to pull together enough resources and stuff to be able to open up my own shop, which was in Hawthorn. So that was quite, I think the most monumental step in anyone starting their own business, particularly in retail, is just securing that first lease. Like getting that lease, that real estate lease, is like fundamental to everything, right? And it's so hard to get a lease if you don't have any experience. So I'm so incredibly grateful to have being able to have secured that lease and actually start.
I had a question around, how you select those suburbs in which you open your stores.
Yeah.
I mean, was the Hawthorn one just because it was available and they let you have it? Or?
It's really gut feel. Firstly, I'm gut feel everything. By the way, like I'm pretty. I don't know. I don't have heaps of strategy behind everything that I do. It's very much like, how does this feel? Is it right or is it wrong? And just having grown up in Melbourne, I feel like I know the broader kind of landscape and just whether or not certain areas are going to suit my business or not.
Yeah, well, I mean, your businesses are typically in the eastern suburbs, more affluent areas like Kew and where I live in Blackburn.
Yeah. So I don't even remember all the places that I was looking, but I remember just being there's a wine bar over the road in Hawthorn called Gibson's Wine Bar, still there today. And I think I was there we were having a party or something, or I was just having a wine with my now wife, Kelsey. And for some reason, I don't know what happened, but I needed to get something from the IGA anyway. And then so I just ducked over there to get something, and then saw the For Lease sign on the building.
Yeah. And
took a photo of it, and then probably went back there the next day and took more photos of it in the light, and called the real estate agent, whose name was Kieran Pillay. Then just started campaigning to really try and get this, and try and convince them to give me this shop, even though I had no experience and no money or anything. But I don't know, I just talked my way through it and got it. So
wow.
Yeah.
Well, I remember I lived in Morang Road, which is the street right next to where I lived there for many years, and I can't remember what it used to be. The Canning's shop. I thought it was
the chemist.
The chemist.
Yeah, and then the chemist moved over. So, yeah. And funnily enough, the Q store was a chemist also. It was Star Pharmacy, and then Star moved just over the car park there. And so
it's interesting how you talk about falling out of love with something, or butchery, and then going and finding yourself, and but then inherently it's there, and then you can tap into it.
That's right.
I was speaking to one of your store managers, and he was telling me about a time where he just chucked all of his knives in Ringwood Lake. Just had a gutful, just threw them all in the lake, and again took him about a year to come back.
Yeah.
Never retrieved his knives out of the lake. But
yeah, I didn't even know about that until last week, and I remember he told me that last week. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, but I think there's not when we're working in industries or occupations, quite often we don't get the chance to sort of see if the grass is greener, and we'll just sort of labour on. And I think having that exercise where you do probably really fuels your love again for what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And just another reason why I just think traveling is so great. Not that we can do any of that now, and I hope my kids get to have that experience where they can just travel freely around the world.
Yeah,
but and traveling by yourself, which is what I did. Yeah, I traveled from Japan and then into China and all the way down to Laos and Vietnam and Cambodia and Thailand, and it was so awesome.
Yeah,
and it just, I don't know, shifted my way of thinking, I guess, or perspective on a lot of things.
Well, I think it's Australians in particular, we're on this continent, and we're so far south of anything else in the world. You look at Europe and Asia, you can walk to different countries, whereas we are natural curiosity as Australians to go, what's out there? I want to be able to see what's out there, and, we get so inspired to do that. You don't know, I don't know many people of my age that have never travelled, for example. Whereas, you go to places like the UK, and, you might hop on a train from London to Scotland, and people go, you're really going to do that? And you go, yeah, like, what's wrong? It's only, 10 hours or something,
Yeah.
But they just don't travel.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So you mentioned suppliers before, your egg people in Phillip Island, and
Yep.
I'm quite curious about, your suppliers, because I imagine that you have to very carefully select them and then build relationships with them that are mutually beneficial, because that's part of your philosophy is care. I mean, I
Yep.
imagine you care about your suppliers and
For
want your
sure.
suppliers to care about what they do as well, because that's...
Definitely.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So something I've always done from day one with Cannings is actually go and visit the farmers. Like, I guess you find the farmers, like, or the producers, or the product that you want, online, and then, do a bit of research around that, and then I guess, reaching out and having, those initial discussions with the producers, and then, have a look at the product, make sure it's, it is what you, hoped it would be, and then, I just make an effort to get out, jump in the car and get out to all the farms and go and check them out and see what the kind of day-to-day operations kind of look like, and make sure it kind of feels good. Once again, kind of just feeding back into how a lot of the decisions I make are around, what feels right, and you can't really do that just, from researching on the internet. You've got to get out there.
Yeah.
And I still do that. I've done 4 or 5 farm visits in the last couple of months.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. Yeah, just get to go and see what is actually happening out there in the real world, not just looking at pretty photos on a website.
Yeah.
I make an effort to visit not all, but most of the abattoirs as well, and processing facilities where that the animals are going through. So I've seen a lot of abattoirs and a lot of boning rooms, and just the whole.
Do you sort of have a fixed criteria on how you select?
I do. That's something we've developed in the last couple of years. It's called the Canning selection criteria, funnily enough. Well, look, to be honest, the selection criteria is more about about the specifications of the actual product, like the size of the size of the primal, which is like the portion of meat, and the marbling and the fat color and all that kind of stuff. And then we also have our farming partners make a declaration as well. It's a declaration around, I guess, the welfare standards. So, they're already underpinned by, free range certification, but we like to have our own kind of declaration that the producers make to us.
Yep.
Just, promising, declaring a whole lot of points around, welfare and daily kind of operations and kind of what's going on there. So there is a long kind of criteria which I won't go into, but so that is something that does happen during the state, during the time that we're sort of making our agreement. But when I go there, I'm taking it all in. But first and foremost, it's a feeling.
Yeah.
And I want to be impressed by the conditions, and I want to get a feel that the animals are happy.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I do, because these farmers, they just do such an amazing job with the animals in the land, and they really do.
Can you give an
care.
example?
Yeah, just like the rotational grazing, like how they move the animals around the paddocks, and then how they like a lot of them are kind of multi-species. Like they'll have lamb and beef and pigs, for example, and they're sort of rotating them around in a way that is best for the land. So it's best for the animal as well to be constantly moving on to fresh pasture. But if you do it in a certain way, then because each species, I guess, has different. Has a different effect on the land with their hooves kind of pressing into the grass. Their poo has like different nutritional kind of elements to it, like each animal. So they kind of they all benefit the land, and they so they rotate the animals around the pastures. They also put crops in, so different types of crops at different times of year, different times of the year. So I find that absolutely fascinating. And just the general sort of overarching element of care that they all have for the animals in the land.
Yeah. Because nature is just fascinating, isn't it? And again, I think it's something that we take for granted when we're looking at food production.
Yep.
And I remember watching a show with George once. It was about regeneration. And it was like, wow, this is like, it's not rocket science. I remember one part of the documentary was these farmers, they were having problems with snails. And they didn't have enough people to be able to remove the snails from this, well, they're growing something green, I can't remember what it was. But anyway, then somebody came up with the idea, we've got a whole paddock full of geese up the road. And they just transported the geese down. The geese ate all the snails, and then they pooed that back into the ground.
Yep.
And it was just like, oh.
Yeah. Nature has the solution already.
Yeah.
You just got to sort of get in tune with that.
Yeah. Do you think we trust in it enough?
In nature?
Yeah.
I think. I mean, it's easy for me to say because I'm not a farmer, so you know. I mean, I don't really know, but maybe we've just sort of forgotten, you know, forgotten how to trust or how to, you know, like I think I've seen that documentary that you've watched as well. I can't remember what it was called. Is it like The Big Little Farm or something?
That's it. Yes.
Yeah. And once again, like the answer is kind of in front of you. You just got to be kind of in tune with it.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the time in, I guess, commercial agriculture or whatever, there is that constant push to produce like volume and yield and all that kind of stuff
and expedite everything.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So I don't know. It'd be good to see a shift in terms of you know. Output maybe and a little bit more of an interest in just that regenerative kind of practice of agriculture, which I think is becoming a little bit more well known and so I think that's going to be the next big movement is regenerative agriculture. But it is a slower process and therefore it is more expensive and you know
which passes on to the consumer. But do you think consumers I mean everywhere I went out for a barbecue the week after, the week before last, and of course it was a local barbecue, and I said, "Oh, where'd you get your meat from?" Canning's. And then the next day I went somewhere else. Where'd you get your meat from? Canning's. Like it's such a community thing. Like, and the idea is, where else would you go? Like, why wouldn't you go there? And
that's
you
awesome.
sort of ask the question around, you know, because it's more highly priced than other meat, and but people just want that quality and they want that experience, but also they want to show it off to their mates as well, because it's almost guaranteed you can't really F it up, you know.
Oh, that's cool.
It's so good.
I love those little stories. I love to hear that kind of stuff, obviously.
I've got another one coming up for you later in the show from somebody that sent me a note yesterday knowing that I'll be with you today.
Ooh.
What's the scariest moment that you've had in terms of launching and floating this business?
Scariest moment. Well, funnily enough, starting the business probably wasn't the scariest moment because you're just so like focused on just getting it done and opening, and just not looking back. But definitely one of the most intense and probably stressful moments was when we opened our Q store, the second store, because the scale of it and the size of it, it was like an incredibly expensive fit out. I was kind of spending money that I didn't have. What else is new? Still kind of doing that.
It's changed.
But so there was just, that first year after opening Q was incredibly difficult and, really kind of walked that tightrope of bankruptcy or whatever of just going out of business. So just constantly just shuffling money around from here, there and everywhere, just trying to make that work and not close. And actually we did go through a period of that when we opened Hawthorn as well. One of them actually with Hawthorn in particular, I remember that there was a big there was meant to be like a BAS like tax return or something.
Right, yeah.
There was a big tax return that we needed, and it was about 40 grand. And they decided to audit us at that particular time because they're like, the ATO or whatever is like, oh, who's this brand new business? They're asking for 40 grand, us to pay out 40 grand. We've never even heard of these guys before. And so they just audited us and they wouldn't give us the money for like 6 months. And I needed that money so bad just for cash flow. Yeah. Whereas now they've changed that. Whereas if you enter an audit, they have to pay you back that money straight away and then they reclaim it later if if something, if
Is a
they
myth.
discover
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
But back then it was, no, we're just going to withhold the money, and that nearly killed me as well.
Yeah.
So, but look, they're the main kind of pinch points
Yeah.
that I remember.
Because I know
In terms
you
of,
do
in terms
a
of
lot of.
scary moments, like it was pretty
Yeah.
intense there for a while, quite a
You
while.
speak a lot in the media about small business, and how do you think the government supports small business or doesn't?
Oh, I'm not sure if I have the answer to that. I try to ignore government things.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I mean, I just kind of like, I don't really look to. I try not to look to anybody else for support in business. Like I don't know. I've always been quite self sufficient professionally, and yeah. I mean, look, just with apprentices at the moment, we've got quite a few apprentices, and I guess we do get a little bit of help from the government on that. But all in all, I don't know. I just don't really look externally to get support, so I just kind of not really in tune with it.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because COVID as well has really put the pressure on small business because of being in lockdown and things like that. But I know that there are a few good initiatives that have popped up. One's called Ahead for Business, and it's a website. So it's got everything for small business from mental health support right through to financial support and how to do tax, and it's a whole bunch of stuff that's been specifically designed for small business.
I think that's really great. And actually, in hindsight, I mean, I know I've got this mentality of like, oh, I'll sort it out myself kind of thing. But I remember when I started the business, I actually would have loved to have had a bit more of an active kind of mentor or a lot of some guidance around things. Like there are so many things that if someone was going to open up a butcher shop or even just a small business cafe, whatever, if they came to me and said, just give me something, give me 10 bullet points, like of things that I need. Like I feel like I could give someone some really valuable kind of information. So, and it's stuff that was never really given to me.
Yeah.
Stuff like getting a financial controller or just someone to really, like look after your finances.
Yes.
Like sounds not like a kind of no-brainer, but a lot of small business owners are like, oh no, I'll do the books. And we were like that as well. Like Kelsey, my wife, was doing the books at the time and stuff. And but that's not real financial kind of insight. It's just keeping up with
doing what you need to do.
Yeah. So yeah, that would definitely be probably one of the main things. But back to your question about government, I guess, support and stuff. I mean, I actually thought what they did during COVID for business was actually quite phenomenal and quite generous. I mean, I really do. Like maybe there's listeners out there that think opposite, but yeah, I mean, I just thought the whole JobKeeper stuff. I mean, we didn't rely on any of it because we traded quite solidly throughout the whole thing. But yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
I agree. You know, it was never going to be perfect because guess what? They had to turn on the head of a pin and make decisions. Like now, they couldn't wait because of people really needed to have money. Yeah. And I agree. I take my hat off to the government and think that they've done a fantastic job. And I'm sure there are listeners that are going, oh, that's rubbish. It's terrible. Now I'm just looking at the time, Sam. It's time to go to our next break.
Cool.
Already, can you believe that?
Does that mean I get another song quiz?
Yeah,
thing?
Of course.
Yeah.
And I also had to change this because when I got to the studio and set up, I looked at my phone and saw there was a message from you saying, "Oh, I want to swap out, my second song."
The song that I moved away from was from a band, a Melbourne band called Slowly Slowly. So go and check out Slowly Slowly and have a listen to the song Alchemy, because that was one song that I was going to put on there. I reckon they're a really cool band. But yeah, I did swap it out for something.
Yeah.
But,
and of course, me, I'm just able to just deal with it. I'm very agile, Last month I had the divine Steve Bastoni on the show. Steve, he's acted in movies like The Matrix and all kinds of stuff anyway. But Steve was an hour late. He was going to be 15 minutes late. Then that was 20. It was 30. So I had to keep the show going, and keep on readapting the content. But he got there eventually, and it was a fantastic show. So it was worth the wait. So the very second very special song request and the cryptic clue. Think of the band name and how these two species don't play well together. I had to make that up at the last moment, by the way.
Now, listeners, I've only got 3 songs to choose from here, and one of them's already gone. We've already played one, but so this is Rat Cat, and the song is called "Don't Go Now."
That's the one.
And what it means to me, it's just fun. I just love a flowing verse, catchy chorus. They've been playing a bit of Rat Cat on Double J lately. That sort of got me back onto the Rat Cat wagon. But yeah, heard it a couple of days ago, and it's sick. So I hope you enjoy having a little groove around the lounge room or in the car or wherever you are, and get into it.
Yeah, do that. And also, I'm just really impressed that you actually are a musician as well.
Yeah, I'm a drummer.
There you go.
Yeah.
Did not know that.
And a crap guitarist, and I sing as well.
Well, you can't do both together, so you can't be good. You can't be good at everything.
I should have brought my guitar in. I thought about it, but I'm just not good enough.
Well, next time do.
No, I'm not there.
We do live stuff here. I've got a few musical guests. But anyway, we'll be right back. You're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC. Oh, welcome back. The time is 2 minutes past 11 and you're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC with Rae Bonney and Sam Canning. He's one of Australia's leading ethical butchers, known for his standout Canning's free-range butcher stores, and now he's a local radio star.
Thank you. I am a star.
You are.
Thanks.
Speaking of radio stars, a long-time listener of the show who also lived in Morang Road up until recently in Hawthorn. And she's even a much longer friend of mine, Jenny Thorpe, has this to say about Canning's. Since Canning's moved into the area, I should really put her voice on, shouldn't I? I don't know, I wouldn't even know how to start doing that. Since Canning's moved into the area, I've been a fan. The quality of the product is top class. I've seen many different faces over the years, but the thing that hasn't changed is the knowledge of that the staff have is second to none. I also love that they were ahead of the pack in the cashless sales game.
Cool.
Jenny Thorpe said that. Yeah.
I've got a feeling I might even know Jenny. I know everyone in Hawthorn, like from back in the day.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I mean, obviously not everyone, like Canning's customers, but yeah.
Yeah, you probably would, because Jenny likes to chat as well.
Yep.
So she, I'm sure she would have. Something's happening with my my headphones there.
Uh-oh.
Went out a bit. Now, you've driven all the way from the Mornington Peninsula, where you've recently moved from Kew, which you mentioned before.
Yep.
Tell us about this lifestyle change.
Cool. So, my wife and I were fantasizing about having a holiday house.
That started a bit interestingly.
For quite a long time.
Wondering where that was going.
No, quite innocent. So we wanted a holiday house for a while and, didn't really know where that was going to be or when it was going to be. It was probably going to be more of a long-term kind of thing, not a this year thing. And then kind of COVID happened, and then because I don't work in any one particular store, we're head office based. We obviously all the whole head office was working from home, and we were kind of forbidden to rotate around the stores because we didn't want to kind of spread the whatever. We wanted to make sure that the store bubbles, were fully isolated, and because if we closed one, you don't want to have to close all of them.
I know when George was working there, he sneezed once and they sent him home. Yeah.
Working from home a lot. And sorry, I'm saying a lot just because I'm trying to piece it all together in my head.
People do it all the time.
Yeah, but they don't need to. That's one thing
It's very habitual.
You don't need to say Okay, I'm not saying for the rest of the time.
Okay, I'll write down how many times.
I'll just sit in silence if I don't know exactly what to say at that particular moment. So we started thinking, okay, I don't need to go into the office all the time. I can work from home a bit. Okay, how do we, are we going to do this holiday house thing? I don't know, blah, blah, blah. I'm just trying to remember what happened. Long story short, we decided we were going to sell the house in Kew, move down to Mornington because we wanted to get some rural land.
Yep.
And so we bought a place in Balnarring, and we're building in Balnarring at the moment. And while that's all happening, we're renting in Mornington. So I mean, it is it's kind of a long story, and a whole lot of crazy things happened.
Yeah.
But basically, we were hoping to just have the holiday house down in the Mornington Peninsula, and then we realised if we wanted to be down there, we can't afford to have a place in Mornington and in Kew.
Yes.
So we had to kind of make that decision, and then and it was kind of COVID, I guess. made us realise, or made everybody kind of realise that they don't probably need to go into the office all the time. And that was what really sort of liberated us to be able to move that far away. I mean, it's only an hour, but...
Yeah, but did you have your kids in mind as well, thinking about how you wanted to raise them?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's why we wanted some land. And that kind of plays into the fact that Kelsey and I are pretty all or nothing people. And, having a holiday house was like, it's just another thing to do, really. Like on your weekends, like get there and then get home. And if you're not there full time, you can't really raise animals because we want to have sheep and egg chickens.
Chickens.
Laying chickens, laying hens. I don't know what you call them. I don't know what I'm talking about.
They're the girl ones, aren't they?
And bees as well. So
right.
yeah. So honey, eggs, and lamb is what we're going to be producing from our farm in Balnarring.
Oh, fantastic! And will that be sold at the Canning's shops?
Don't know yet. At the moment, it's more about it's just for our own personal kind of.
Because you've got quite a range at Canning's too. I was walking past my one in Burwood yesterday. And you sell wine.
Yeah, we sell wine.
Yeah, organic wine.
Is it? It's not organic. We might have a couple of organic labels. But yeah, it's all Yarra Valley wine. Yes. Yeah, all from the Yarra Valley region.
Yeah. And a whole range of other stuff, which I normally go in there to get Vincent, my dog, his big marrow bone.
Yeah.
And he loves them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, look, the move to Mornington's been really great, although I am doing quite a lot of driving. I only come up to Melbourne 2 days a week. So Tuesday and Thursday are my office days essentially.
Yeah.
But they're much more focused now. Like it's all about people when I come up. So it's like I don't go there and jump on the computer. I go there and I'm basically in one meeting to another meeting to a store visit to another store visit to like lots of talking, lots of just seeing people. And then my other days of, just catching up on admin-y kind of stuff. Do
you ever get on the knives?
I just do it from home. No, not really.
Yeah.
No. I do miss it a little bit. Actually, we were looking at some regenerative beef a couple of weeks ago, and we had some samples dropped off at work and at the Q store, and I went in there and cut a tray of porterhouse, cut a tray of Scotch fillet, and it was so much fun. Yeah, it was sick. Didn't cut myself either. It was awesome.
Haven't lost the touch.
No, I haven't. It is kind of like riding a bike, and I do actually love it. I do love getting on the knives.
Yeah.
But my I guess just my daily routines just don't really allow for it. It isn't like time best spent for me. Spent my best, use of time is really is speaking with people, talking with people. So, and this whole like Mornington move has really shone a light on the fact that I really just need to be efficient with my time. And just, it's bang for buck. When I'm in Melbourne, I've just got to get, I've got to get that real value out of my time. So, yeah.
Well, when we caught up last time, you were talking a lot about, what's next. And as you said before, you sort of make things up as you go along. And that's part of the beauty of the spirit of you, is that's what you do. But, now you're sort of you're in Mornington. I know you've just acquired 2 puppies as well.
Yeah.
Cavoodles?
Yeah, toy cavoodles.
Toy?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so when they grow up, they're only about 5 kilos.
Right.
Yeah, so they're kind of cat-sized.
Yeah, cat-sized dogs.
Yeah, and we have a cat that is much bigger than them, but she's still quite uncertain about these little things.
Yes. Well, the uncertainty, we talked about that as well.
Yeah, we were talking about that
uncertainty
yesterday.
being the new certainty, and that quite resonated with you.
Yeah, I love a bit of uncertainty, and you had some interesting stuff to talk about that as well. And I don't know why I do love a little bit of uncertainty, but it's I don't know, it's a bit exhilarating. And I think a lot of the enjoyment of uncertainty for me, it's something that I've kind of reflected on, is because I've got quite a certain or stable kind of family life, and so I have that kind of safety net, and then everything else that happens is kind of like, like what could happen here? Like, who knows? So it's kind of fun.
Do you know what you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah, I want to be a drummer. Yeah. Still, when I was a kid, I used to want to be a arachnologist, which is a spider scientist. How random.
Never heard of that either.
Yeah. Arachnologist.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know those people exist, but God, there mustn't be many of them.
Well, there's plenty of species of spiders in the world, though. And, again, how spiders add value to nature is quite remarkable.
For sure.
But why spiders?
I don't know. I was just obsessed with them when I was a kid.
As in liking them?
Yeah, I used to have like pet huntsmans and, I don't know, black house spiders and tanks and stuff, like empty fish tanks.
Yeah.
Weird, huh?
Yeah, really weird.
Yeah.
Because it's not a go-to really for people to go, I'm going to hang out with spiders.
Yeah, and now it's just like whenever there's a spider in the house, the kids and Kelsey, my wife, she's like, Sam, what type of spider is this? And I'm like, oh,
Yeah. It'll be a huntsman or a wagtail.
Yeah, and I never kill spiders either. Not even the redbacks. I rehouse them.
Yeah.
Well, not house, but remove.
Remove them.
Yeah.
I have a lot of trouble with even if I'm walking and there's a worm or a slug on the ground, like we'll move it, so nobody gets it.
Yeah.
And I've had a huntsman at home now for the last probably 3 or 4 weeks. And I don't know why we call them him, but we just, I don't know if they're sexless or what. But
I'll tell you how to tell the difference in a minute.
All right. So he was on the wall and then he moves around. But anyway, the other day, Vincent was there, the dog, and I saw the spider, the huntsman, it crawled down the side of the television, then starts walking across the floor. And it's like, get off the floor, danger, the dog's going to eat you. And he didn't do it, but it was like, what are you doing? Like, I was really, really concerned. And so I was able to sort of shepherd him away and get him towards a wall to safety.
Classic.
But he's gone now, so
they get around.
How long do they last for?
Nomadic little things. I don't know. I should know. I should know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So how do we test the sex?
So they've got 8 legs, right?
Yeah.
But then they've also got these. They've got arms essentially. So they've got the 8 big legs, and then they've got the 2 little ones at the front.
Yeah.
They're called palps.
Yeah.
And on the end of the palps, the females don't have anything. They're just, they just look like a little mini hand, or mini leg. But the male at the end of it has a sac, like a little bulb at the end of each of his hands, and that's actually where his semen is.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Yeah, and they kind of, I don't know what they do with it, like jab it in somewhere. As you do. But, so have a close look next time you see him. And if you see the little bulbs on the end of his palps, then that's how you tell if it's a male.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you see him jamming it into some other spider, I'll know what's going on.
And if you and what I love about the huntsmans as well is when you capture them in a glass and like flip them upside down and have a look, you can see their mouth and you can see the fangs and everything. Wow. Yeah, the fangs are quite big on a huntsman.
Yeah. Because they're not poisonous, though, huntsmans, are they?
No, they're not poisonous.
But daddy longlegs they're rarely poisonous, but they can't.
Apparently.
But they can't get the.
Yeah, because their fangs are like basically it's like hair.
Yeah.
They just can't.
They can't get it out.
No.
Well, we have digressed, haven't we?
God,
you know, butchery to.
I know. I need more time. Can I get like an extra hour or 2 on here?
Oh, well, maybe. I don't know. We've got the footy coming up after this.
Yeah,
so
I'm not a footy person. I don't know anything about footy.
Don't you?
No. I go for the Hawks, but that's about it.
But they don't know. They don't know that.
No.
It's coming up next is our award-winning VFL football broadcast.
Cool.
So it's the Box Hill Hawks. So you would know that because you barrack for Hawthorn.
Yeah.
And that's live with expert commentary. I don't know who's going to be commentating. Probably Paul Hooper, I'd say. Phil Edwards. He'll be out there, or he'll be in here producing it. And I don't really know what we've really spoken about today, but I do just like to remind our audience that if anything we've spoken about today is triggered, uncomfortable feelings for people, please remember help is there. So a few options are Lifeline, 131114. Suicide callback service is 1300 659 467, and emergency services is 000. Just in the event. How do you manage your mental health, Sam?
Good question.
And I kind of know the answer to this because we have talked about it. But
well, something that did a phenomenon that I'd come up against during COVID was some kind of anxiety, depression kind of thing, which thankfully I haven't really had to deal with so much before. But during COVID, I felt incredibly restricted, trapped. I was struggling to sleep. I was getting incredibly restless, like waking up like 50 times a night, tossing, turning, couldn't get comfortable. And that just kind of gradually escalated, and I didn't really know what the hell was going on. And my and I was living in Kew at the time, and I'm good friends with my neighbour, Josh, and he reached out, and he was doing a whole lot of fitness stuff from his garage, and he had a little gym in his garage, and he reached out, and I was just, I don't know, just kind of said, oh, I don't know, everything's shit or whatever, and he kind of tuned into that. He's very like perceptive and doesn't kind of let things slide if he feels like something's not right. So big thanks to Josh for, I guess, not letting that slide. And so we went for, he said, let's go for a walk, blah, blah, blah. And then he sort of invited me to do this this gym program stuff with him in his shed. And and yeah, so that, and it was actually that moment that made me realise I only did like 1 or 2 days with him in there, and I started to feel better already.
Yeah.
And I know it's like a bit of a cliche, like everyone says, get some exercise, it makes a difference.
Oh.
It absolutely transformed my mental state in about a week.
Oh, we absolutely underrate the happy hormones and how they're activated. The serotonin and the oxytocin, they really do make a difference. But again, big shout out to Josh, and again, flies in the face of, that men supporting men is a real thing, and men do. That he recognised that there was something different going on for you, and he gave you a platform to be able to connect. Yeah,
and I've always been into, I guess, health and wellbeing and fitness and all that kind of stuff. I'm not like a sportsman in any way, but I've always done gym and functional movement training, flexibility stuff. But yeah, wasn't going to the gym, wasn't really doing any of that during COVID.
Yeah.
But since having done that with Josh, I've set up my own gym in my own house now in the garage, and that's something I do 5 days a week, pretty much religiously, unless I'm like sick or whatever, or something's popped up. But it's part of my normal day now.
Great.
And so in answer to your question, I guess that's kind of helping. But I'm not like predisposed, I don't think, to, as I said, like I haven't really had any huge encounters with anxiety or depression, thankfully. But I do recognise that the exercise just helps keep me in that on that more positive keel day to day. And just things just like spending a little bit of time alone. Like, this is me. Like, I'm only speaking for myself. Like, I actually like spending a little bit of time by myself. And yeah, like, I don't know, listening to music, like even just that gym time. I mean, that's my own time, crank double J or whatever, and do a little bit of gym work.
That's double J. I thought it was triple J.
Yeah, there's double J as well.
Is there?
Yeah, that's it's not FM or anything. It's digital.
Yeah.
But they play older stuff. They play all the like 80s, 90s stuff. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Because you also had a bit of a dabble in kinesiology as well.
Yeah.
So I was really keen to hear more about that too.
Yeah. Super keen to talk about that actually. That's quite a, I guess there's a lot we could talk about that. But I mean,
in the last 10 minutes, in fact, you've probably got about 7.
Yeah. So, I mean, what kind of pointed me in that direction was, I've been looking for something, and I don't know what that is. Well, I didn't know it at the time, but it's. I feel like it's a bit of balance. Like I'm very much like go, like all the time. Like kind of what's next. But that's not really like sustainable way of thinking either. Like there needs to be some downtime. There needs to be a bit of kind of like I was saying before, like, I do everything based on feel, and I also make decisions incredibly quickly. And maybe even more or more hastily lately, just because, I don't know, I've felt myself kind of getting a little bit, not out of control, but with decision making, but just very like quite flippant in decision making. And that's kind of one thing that I'd identified in myself, that things were just kind of all moving a little bit fast, and I was really kind of looking for a way to slow it down. And I know there's like, meditation and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not great at meditating. Find it very hard to, bring things back down to that kind of level. But anyway, the kinesiology has been really amazing. It's not just jumping. I don't know if anyone's familiar with kinesiology, but it works on like chakras and balancing your energies and all this kind of stuff. Don't really know much about it, but I mean,
Well, you know enough because you've had it.
well, I've had it twice,
Yeah.
and the way this particular practitioner I'm working with works, I mean, a lot of it is talking, and it is kind of counselling, I guess, in a certain way. It's just, it's conversation, and you're kind of venting, and you're just letting things out, things that are coming to mind or things that have been bothering you lately. And then the end of the session is this where you lie on the table, and there's a lot of energy balancing stuff going on. I don't know how she does it.
Yeah.
I mean, she's psychic straight up. Like she is very much sensing things and says things that I don't know how she knows, but she knows about me. And so I'm finding that to be quite beneficial, and I'm walking out of those sessions feeling balanced and calmer and more present in the moment. So I'm just vibing that, and I'm always looking for ways to kind of improve myself, and now I'm just looking at ways to maybe just get in touch with with something that's inside